Welcome back to ABC 13 Weather Now. We've seen our fair share of tornadoes in Texas, and today we welcome Houston Chronicle's Justin Ballard to break down this year's preliminary tornado reports, which are the most since the record-setting year of 2011. Welcome back, Justin.
It really shouldn't be a surprise. We've covered a lot of tornado outbreaks over the last couple of months, particularly during the spring and summer.
Let's talk first, though, about the record holder.
Yes.
2011 went down in the record books for the most prolific tornado maker our country has seen since those records began.
Yes, and unless something majorly drastic and horrible changes, it will likely remain the record holder, at least for another season. 2011 had almost 1,900 preliminary tornado reports that year. So, I mean, you see that list there. 2,200 preliminary tornado reports, 1,900 actual tornado reports. A lot of numbers kicking around in my head.
So explain real fast the difference between preliminary and then what are actual reports.
So if you think of the actual reports kind of as more vetted, fleshed out sort of reports, these are more confirmed, more thoroughly confirmed, as opposed to having multiple tornado reports on one tornado.
The same tornado,
same tornado, basically. These are kind of the vetted out version. Typically, those actual counts do drop a little bit compared to the preliminary totals.
Okay, so let's talk about this year in particular and how Texas has contributed to those 1,755 reports. Texas often leads the way in tornado reports, and this year is no different. How many of those preliminary tornadoes were EF2 or stronger?
Believe it or not, of the 152 tornadoes, that's still a lot, but of the 152 tornadoes that we had in Texas, only 4 were estimated to be an EF2 or stronger. Of course, much of those in the Panhandle. You see the list there. Top 5 tornado reports by state. Texas, not surprisingly, leading the way at 152, followed by Nebraska and Iowa at 131, 126 in Illinois, and 104 in Missouri.
And the reason Texas usually is number one is just because we're so large, right?
It's a big state.
Maybe not, in tornadoes per square mile we lead, but certainly in raw numbers.
Exactly. I mean, we are part of tornado, that kind of classical tornado alley, all the way up to, the higher plains, Nebraska into South Dakota. So it's not a surprise to see this many tornadoes during the course of a year in Texas. But certainly, I mean, you look in some of the footage there, some pretty gnarly tornadoes do form, especially during the spring and summer.
Yeah, and you found an interesting statistic in your research that aligns pretty well with AccuWeather's findings that 10% of this year's preliminary tornado reports were caused by landfalling hurricanes. What was the stat for Texas?
For Texas, that number was pretty comparable, 13%. Believe it or not, 13% of that total was from Hurricane Beryl. Hurricane Beryl, of course, on all of our minds still from July 8th. Before it made landfall, it produced 2 tornadoes, so July 7th that would have been. 21 tornadoes total during the course of that tornado outbreak, 19 on July 8th alone, and many of those tornadoes were reported in the piney woods of East Texas.
Yeah, I think the most memorable one that we had here was the one that destroyed that beach home in Jamaica Beach. Now, was there a state that jumped out to you when looking at the hurricane-induced tornadoes this year?
Absolutely. Thankfully, not Texas. The state that jumped out to me was actually Florida. Hurricane Milton produced nearly half, 46% of that state's tornado reports so far, preliminary tornado reports so far this year.
And I remember ahead of Milton's landfall, there were so many, not just tornadoes, but strong tornadoes that formed in the southern half of the state.
Multiple EF2s and stronger formed, especially in the central and southern part of the state.
Okay, well, we hope we're done with landfalling hurricanes, although we may not be in Florida. We'll have to keep an eye on what may be future Sarah. And here's a look at your article that just published for anyone that's wanting to take a deeper dive. Who in Texas, but actually, though, that's the snow one.
Yeah, that's the snow one. But it is live. I double checked.
It is live about that tornado stats. So thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you.